Marcus Smart signs a big new extension, and I've got a preview of the Summer League Championship game right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So hype right now. Anything's possible. Oh, my mama. Oh, my lady, ma. Anything's possible.
Rain and Jay's back with the vengeance. All the real Celtics fans in attendance. This the truth like 34. This like walking in the garden when you hear the roars. The crowd goes crazy. Most in-depth coverage on the daily. Mainly podcast royalty, the content kings. When you talking about the franchise with 17 rings. Focus like Danny at the deadline. Global with it, got a local feel like the red line, the blue line, the green line. Play it in between time. I'ma throw my C's jersey on in the meantime and press play. When the F's done, I can't wait until the next day. Trying to stay in tune with the C's, that's the best way. Melly.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast. Thank you for making the show part of your daily routine. Listening to the show on the podcast, if you're watching the show on YouTube, however it is that you consume the show, I'm just happy that you do. I'm John Karalis. I cover this team for the Boston Sports Journal. I've also written a book called The Boston Celtics All-Time All-Stars. Pick one up wherever books are sold. Get a signed copy on my website, johnkaralis.com, for $30, personalized and all of that stuff. Marcus Smart has signed is going to sign a 4-year extension. It's going to be 4 years, $77 million. That is a nice new deal for Marcus Smart. And I'm going to spend the next 2 segments talking about that. In the third segment, Matt George from Locked On Kings and I got together to talk about the Summer League Championship game, which is Tuesday night, 9 p.m. We're going to watch the Boston Celtics and Sacramento Kings get together and play a basketball game. That's being called a championship, so what the hell? So we did a little mini crossover to talk about that in Summer League. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty here. Marcus Smart, 4 years, $77 million. That's going to start the following season. So this year is the last year of his contract. It's an extension. So next season, 2022-23, starts with $17.2 million, runs for 4 years. 2025-26 is the final year of that deal. And I think this is a good extension. This makes sense. Let's just talk about this from a pure basketball standpoint for a second, because later I'm going to talk about the question that you're going to have. Hey, John, I thought you said they were going to get max cap space. Yeah, that's kind of what it looked like, but not so much. So I'm going to talk about what does this mean for Bradley Beal or the pursuit of a third star. That's coming up later. Right now, from a money perspective, from a basketball perspective, I am a fan of this deal. I think this makes sense. Plenty of you, I know, disagree. This is going to be a challenging time for the Marcus Smart haters. I have said multiple times in this show that Marcus Smart is a starting point guard. He will be this year's starting point guard, and he should be this year's starting point guard. This money will pay him like a starting point guard for the next actually 5 years when you factor in this year's deal at $14.3 million. He's being paid like a starting point guard. He's going to get the starting point guard job. Let's just wrap our heads around that for a minute. If you're having trouble with that, pause, take a breath, put your head between your knees, open up that airflow, then come back and join me as I continue to say that Marcus Smart can be very good in this role. He's a good passer. He's a good point guard. He is good at that. He just hasn't had the opportunity to do that because he's had Kemba Walker around. But when he's filled in for Kemba Walker, I think he's been pretty good as a point guard. And as I've said many, many times, I think Marcus Smart has this ability to, first of all, he's a good passer. He's the team's best passer. He's smart on offense as far as recognizing things. Now, also, I understand he takes bad shots. I get that. But I will repeat myself. Marcus Smart, as the starting point guard, has a real chance to eliminate a lot of that from his game, because you come down as the starting point guard, here you go, Marcus Smart dribbling down the floor, boom, pass it off. Or you run a pick and roll with Robert Williams. Robert Williams rolls, Is there a lob there? Great. That's a pass. It's not a shot. Are you running something with Rob coming up and getting into a dribble handoff with somebody? Great. So you give it up to Rob. Here comes somebody off the dribble handoff. Jayson Tatum starting in one corner. Jaylen Brown starting in another corner. You got Robert Williams starting coming up. All right. Or setting a pick for Tatum, let's say, to come off. Then what does Smart do? He cuts through, gets out of the way. Those two operate over here. You've got another whomever. Is it Aaron Nesmith? Is it somebody else? Somebody spotting up somewhere? That person slides up. Marcus Smart goes into the corner. You have a possibility of a swing, Marcus Smart corner three-pointer. I looked up the numbers for Boston Sports Journal. Marcus Smart, I'm going to read directly from my piece. Marcus Smart in the corner this past season was 48.7% on corner three-pointers. 48.7%. So he hit almost half of his three-pointers in the corners. There weren't a lot. There weren't enough. Everybody's totals were down. Above the break threes, 30.7%. Terrible. It's horrible. It's not an acceptable number. So what's more likely to happen? Marcus Smart getting better at above the break threes, or Marcus Smart getting more corner three-pointers? What would you want if you're the Celtics? He's 27. Is he going to get better at above the break threes? I mean, it's possible he can get up, maybe instead of 30, he can get up to 32. But what you want more is, let's find a way to get Marcus Smart in the corners. You know where we're starting point guards? When you're starting an offense, where they tend to end up? In those corners. And if you're hitting half those corner threes, then great. So I think there is a strong chance that Smart can fix the one thing that everybody's so fixated on with his game, the missed shots. The defense is going to be there, okay? I think the passing is going to be there. The basketball, the other stuff is going to be there. Running the offense, running the pick and roll. For a while, it was only Marcus Smart that could throw Robert Williams lobs. And he likes to go catch those lobs. Smart's ability to run and recognize these things and be able to get the offense going, I think, is good enough. Is he an elite point guard? No, but he'll be a good point guard. You don't need an elite point guard necessarily. You've got elite wings. You've got an all-star on one side and an all-star / MVP candidate potentially on the other side. They like Marcus Smart. Let me pull another stat out for you that I found here. Smart had 273 assists last season. 149 of them went to Tatum and Brown. So more than half of his assists go to Tatum and Brown. Now you could say, well, who else is going to finish those shots? They hit more of their shots, so more of those passes that he makes are going to become assists. But at the same time, he is setting them up to make those shots. So what's Brad Stevens been saying all along? People who accentuate Tatum and Brown are going to be the ones that get that spot, that get the minutes, that get the time. Marcus Smart very clearly accentuates Tatum and Brown because he has assisted on more of their baskets than anybody else, and more than half of his assists went to those two guys. So from a basketball perspective, forget the business for a second. Business is coming up after the break. From a basketball perspective, I'm very clearly pro Marcus Smart. I think at this money, this is good money in this salary cap where the cap's going to be up over $120 million this year, and it's going to jump to forget what it's going to jump to next year. But it's going to be, let me see if I can look that up real quick. The tax line is going to be 149, 119. The salary cap the following year is going to be 119. So the first year of this new deal, 119 million, and Marcus Smart's going to make 17.2 million of that. So That's not a big percentage of the cap. To pay your starting point guard, that's right in line with what a good starting point guard should be getting in the NBA. That's right in line. So it's a good contract. It's fine. If you don't like it, I know why, and that can be fixed. But this is a good contract. Business-wise, what does this mean for Bradley Beal? What does this mean for their free agent pursuit? What kind of money do they have lying around now? What is Brad Stevens doing? That is coming up next. First, I'm going to tell you about SweatBlock. I had somebody DM me after hearing me talk about SweatBlock. They're going to try it. Perspiration can be a problem for some people. This isn't just going out and it's hot and you sweat. Sometimes people get nervous and you sweat. Sometimes you go to meet somebody, or you're at work, you're at a presentation, maybe you're talking to people and you just can't help it, right? That's a problem, and it's an embarrassing problem. People don't like to talk about it, but there are solutions. Here's a doctor who wanted to fix that problem for himself. He created SweatBlock. So it comes from a doctor, and what he found is it's like first of all, it's like a wet nap type of thing. You take a shower the night before, you put this stuff on in the problem area. In the morning, you wash it off. And what the doctor found is good for about a week for him. So that's about what you can expect. You get a dry shirt guarantee from SweatBlock. If it doesn't work for you, you get your money back. It's no risk to try this. So don't go worrying about what clothes you're going to put on. You know, that blue shirt that you sweat through and you're like, oh, I'd love to wear this blue shirt. I like wearing these blue shirts. Try SweatBlock, and maybe you can wear that shirt without the layers, without having to pile on and be even hotter for some reason, and you're just trying to find ways to soak up that perspiration. It's been tested. We see videos out there. You can search it. You can Google it. You can check out SweatBlock. This is the little secret to added confidence. This is going to give you that confidence to get through that first date, to go to that wedding. Maybe you're getting married and you want to have all of this can be very, very helpful. So check it out, put it in your toiletry bag. And like I said, it is risk-free with their dry shirt guarantee. You get 20% off at sweatblock.com. Go to sweatblock.com, check it out, pick it up, use the promo code LOCKEDON. Locked On gets you 20% off at sweatblock.com, or if you want, you can go out to Amazon and CVS to pick up a box of SweatBlock. Now, this show is also brought to you by Indeed. Indeed makes hiring easy because it makes the ability to attract, interview, and hire people all in one spot. Okay, it's hard to, if you're hiring people, it's hard to do all of that. I have been there on my desk with a pile of resumes, walking in the morning and seeing that pile of resumes and going, oh, God, how am I going to, I don't even want to deal with this. But people want a fair shot at their job, so Indeed is taking all of that off of your plate. They're going to help you find the right candidate by making that right candidate find you. Indeed's hiring tools help you cut through the noise to hire faster and smarter. With Indeed Instant Match, you get a list of quality candidates whose resumes are Indeed the moment you post a sponsored job. You can choose from 135 skills tests to help you make sure you're finding the right applications. According to Talent Nests, Indeed delivers 4 times more hires than all the other job sites combined. So go to Indeed.com/locked. You're going to get a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post. Go to Indeed.com/locked. That's a $75 credit at Indeed.com/locked. Indeed.com/locked. The offer is available and valid through September 30th. Terms and conditions apply. So Marcus Smart signs his extension, and all of a sudden this whole plan for max cap space next summer out the window. And listening to some people talk, it was possible. It was always possible that they were going to do this. But the instant that they gave this extension to Marcus Smart, it went away, which means that it was always a little bit tenuous to have this plan to give this max cap space to somebody. It was always going to be very difficult. Now it's impossible. It is impossible for it to happen. You cannot sign a 35%. They cannot sign Bradley Beal using that cap space. I broke down the numbers on Boston Sports Journal. Tatum and Brown and Smart next season, not this upcoming season, next season, combined to make $76.3 million. The salary cap is projected to be $119. So to sign Bradley Beal, he's a 10-year vet who is eligible for 35% of the salary cap. That will be about $41.5 million, right? Now, you say, well, you can do that, and that brings them up to the cap, and then you can start using minimums and whatever to fill those spots afterwards. However, the way the collective bargaining agreement works is for every empty slot less than 12, it puts a cap hold in there. This is specifically to prevent a team from doing just what you might be thinking that they could do. You got Tatum, you got Brown, you got Smart. Let's just everybody else go away. We'll renounce everybody that we need to renounce, and we'll bring in Bradley Beal, and now we just start signing minimum contracts. And that's how we're going to build our team. Can't happen that way because what they have is cap holds. Every number under 12, every empty spot under 12 is filled with at least the rookie minimum. So the NBA assumes that every one of those empty spots can be filled by at least a minimum wage rookie guy. That's $925,000 plus each. So there's $8.3 million in cap holds for the remaining 9 spots beyond Tatum and Brown and Smart in this scenario where they let everybody go, trade away everybody into cap space, don't pick up any options, renounce all of their exceptions, blah, 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 blah. They still don't have enough room to sign Bradley Beal because there's $8.3 million in cap holds for the empty spots that you cannot do anything about. So they literally do not have the cap space. Now, it's not to say that they can't maybe convince him to sign for less, to say, hey, I'm not going to take the 41.6. Maybe I'm going to take 35 or whatever. Maybe you go down to a different number. And that allows the Celtics to fill the roster differently. Maybe you pick up a couple of these other options and the cap holds you work out. Like there's a way to finagle certain things, but it's going to take Beal taking less. It's going to take, you got to figure out what to do with Robert Williams. Functionally, it's really not possible. It's really just not possible. So we can forget that. So, all right. So they're not doing cap space. We thought they were doing cap space. They're not. So it's going to have to be a sign and trade. If the Celtics are going to get, let's say, Beal. I keep saying Beal. It could be somebody else. Who knows? But if they're going to get a Bradley Beal type, it's going to have to be via sign and trade. And for them to do it via sign and trade, it changes the dynamic a little bit because the tax line is going to be about $145 million. The tax apron, which is the hard cap line, is $6 million above that. So let's say 151. You bring in Bradley Beal at the max. That brings you to a point where they'd have about $33 million or so to play with for the rest of their roster. Now, that may also mean that Robert Williams goes and you're going to lose some useful players, but maybe in that scenario you can keep a Peyton Pritchard and an Aaron Nesmith and start going minimums after that. And then you hope the ring chasers come in and that can be your team. But at least at that point you have Smart, Tatum, Brown, Beal, small, but you've got your 1 through 4. You find a serviceable 5. You got Pritchard and Nesmith off the bench. That's your 7. A couple of ring chasers. Now you've got at least some semblance of a team. All right, you do what the Lakers are doing And hopefully you can have the appeal, some of the appeal that the Lakers have. I know it's not LA, but you can, hopefully have the ring chasing appeal there. That's basically it. That's business wise. I think that's where the Celtics are. They have when you're trying to trade for a guy, I see three avenues. There's three avenues that you can get to trade for a player like this in a sign and trade. When the other team is giving up one of their stars, what do you have? What are the options? You can go draft picks. You can be a crappy team with good draft picks, and the team that's giving up the player can say, hey, at least, we know that some of these draft picks are going to be good. You have in your possession draft picks from crappy teams, and you can rebuild through other people's tanking. That's one way to do it. You can already have young players that are projecting out to be all-stars in place, good young players that you can trade. That's another way to do it. The Celtics don't have the draft picks in this scenario because they're theoretically going to be pretty good after whatever deal they make, and they're not going to be, their draft picks are going to be kind of crappy. So the draft pick thing doesn't matter. The good young players are kind of iffy right now. You have Pritchard, you have Nesmith. What do they develop? How strongly are other teams interested in those guys? Can they build up their value to a point where the other team's like, yeah, okay, those are acceptable. But you'd need Romeo Langford to hit. Robert Williams has value too. If he can stay healthy, that would be important. So they have a little bit of that. But what they also have, the third thing, is cap space. You can offer the Wizards or the other team, say, all right, you're rebuilding. Here's what we're going to give you. We're going to give you a couple of young players that you can evaluate with bigger opportunities. And it's Nesmith or Pritchard or Robert Williams. And we're going to give you just a ton of cap space. We're going to allow you, after you move your guy and you get money back, like all of that money is going to go away. And so we're going to allow you to send out more than you take in. So you just get a huge chunk, and now you can play the Oklahoma City game. We can take your Kemba Walker into here for a first-round pick. We can take your Al Horford into our cap space for a first-round pick, and you can start building up your assets this way. It's going to take a little while for you to get good, but you at least have a tool, a path to getting there. That's going to be the Celtics' bread and butter, which would coincide with Bradley Beal saying, hey, I want to play there, and that's the only place I want to play. Again, does it have to be Bradley Beal? No, but it makes most sense for it to be Bradley Beal, and then you kind of roll with it. Do you think that these guys all fit? Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but then at least from there you can kind of reevaluate, and maybe you have to trade one of those three to find another star that fits. I don't know, but for right now, the impact of Marcus Smart's deal business-wise is cap space gone. It's going to have to be a sign and trade. A lot of these guys, maybe that cap space that the Celtics have can go towards a really good role player, a high-end bench player, a starter level, not third star, but who knows, starter level stretch four, that maybe you're not using all of that cap space for a max guy, but you're using a bunch of that cap space for a good player. This season could play out in a way that Smart as the starting point guard is good, and Tatum and Brown take their steps forward. And Tatum is an MVP candidate, and Jaylen Brown is an all-star again, and Robert Williams stays healthy. Then you're like, hey, maybe we don't need the third star. Maybe we just need the right fit, and that can be how they use that cap space. That is certainly possible. We're fixated on the third star. It doesn't have to be the third star. Maybe this season was just this offseason was just a bunch of one-year contracts because the types of players that they could sign just weren't there, and they weren't going to give a ton of money to certain players that are out there. Maybe it's not the third star that they're saving that money for. Maybe it's a lower tier starter level person who makes 20 plus million. And now you're talking. Now you can work some of that out. Now you can keep some of the guys that you can have. You can maybe sign and trade with somebody in that scenario. This way you are still operating as an over-the-cap team. You sign and trade that guy. You bring him into your cap space. You hard cap yourself, but it doesn't matter because you'll have $50 or $60 million to spend as opposed to, or $40 million, whatever the number is, as opposed to the 33. And you can deal with that. You can pick up options on young guys, and you can offer up minimums, and you can get through it. And then next year, you're not hard capped. So the business side of this is, a little, we're adjusting what we think. As I was on the Genotime podcast with Tom Westerholm, and I kind of joked that this is like a game of like Pictionary or whatever, like, where you are drawing something and we're guessing at what you're trying to draw the whole time. And it's, Brad Stevens starts to draw and we're like, oh, cap flexibility. And no, it's a sign and trade. Like, no, wait, well, what are you doing? What does that mean? And each time he draws something, each time he puts a new contract out there, it's like, oh, wait a minute, what is that? And we're trying to guess kind of midstream. It's like somebody trying to guess the ending of a movie, 30 minutes into it. Like, all right, we'll just watch the whole movie. But when you're podcasting every day and writing every day, you just kind of have to go with the flow and kind of guess along the way. So the max cap space thing is out. Marcus Smart is in for the next 4 years. The business side of things is a good question mark. That means I think I'm just going to have one of our expert cap guys in to have another extended conversation about where the Celtics go from here. Maybe I can make that tomorrow's show or Thursday show or something, because tomorrow I have to dedicate that to the Celtics winning the Summer League Championship, which they're going to do, right? Don't I? I'm going to bring in Matt George from the Locked On Kings podcast next to have a fun little preview of the Summer League Championship, which is coming up Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Set your DVRs. You do not want to miss it. You also do not want to miss out on the deals at rockauto.com. Rock Auto is the place to go to save a ton of money on anything your car or truck needs. And I'm talking about anything complicated or anything simple. You want wipers, you want floor mats, that's my speed. I go to rockauto.com. You can save a bunch of money there. Your real savings are if you know the nitty gritty, if you're a do-it-yourselfer and you know what your engine needs, and it's one of those super expensive parts, well, it's not so super expensive at Rock Auto. I've talked to people that have saved hundreds of dollars, multiple hundreds of dollars on very complicated, expensive car parts. They've saved a bunch of money by going to Rock Auto. You can save 30 to 50 to even 100% more. It's a family business. They've been doing this for 20 years. They've been saving people money for 20 years. Don't waste your time or energy going to one of those chain stores, because you've seen how big those places are. There's no way they can keep everything that every car needs in stock. You're just going to get whatever they give you. Don't do that. Go to rockauto.com. Expansive, easy to navigate catalog, and it's all there to save you a bunch of money. I know when you go there, you're going to buy something. I just know that you are. When you do, make sure you write Locked On in there, how did you hear about us box? That's how they know that we sent you. Write Locked On in there, how did you hear about us box? They'll know that we sent you. You're going to get an amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need at rockauto.com. Take some of the money you save there, go to Built Bar, and get yourself the best tasting protein bar on the market today. No way anybody can beat what Built Bar is putting out there. These things taste like candy bars, but really you're getting 17 to 18 grams of protein, which you're not getting in candy bars. Calories, 130 to 180. That's it. 4 to 5 grams of sugar, 4 or 5 net carbs. How can you beat that? It's great when you're going to the gym. You can have it after your cardio session, after your weightlifting session. The calories won't blow out all the cardio that you did. The protein in these things are going to give your muscles what they need immediately after you lift to help feed and fuel them so you can get those results. That's how I like to do it. I generally like to take one with me to the gym. It's great. As soon as I'm walking out the door, I have my Built Bar. By the time I get to the car, I'm satisfied. I'm good. So go to BuiltBar.com. Use the promo code LOCKED15. You're going to get 15% off every single time you go to Built Bar. So you can sample, you can pick different flavors, stock up if you want. Every time you go, use that promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off at Built.com.
All right, Matt George, Locked On Kings host, finalist in the NBA Summer League Championship, whatever thing. What do we do here? We yell at each other? Do we swear at each other? I don't know how this is supposed to go.
It's about time that the Boston Celtics get on the Kings level. That's all I'm saying. It's about time that a team from Boston can just rise up to the status that Sacramento sets for themselves. I've been looking forward to a Celtics-Kings rivalry my entire life, John, and now finally we get it. Yeah, it's been a long time coming.
Yeah, it's been there, just kind of, now it finally just explodes in summer awesomeness. I haven't been able to catch a whole lot of Kings Summer League, to be honest with you. I know Davion Mitchell is a guy we're supposed to really be afraid of here, but the Celtics are getting Peyton Pritchard back. So that's going to be, we're talking about irresistible force and immovable object. This is it. This is defense, offense. Here we go.
Well, that's what everybody's looking forward to, right? Everybody's looking at this Mitchell versus Pritchard battle, which if the Summer League has any sense, they should force both teams to play them every single minute of this game just to see how far they can go without getting injured. Of course, you don't want to do anything like that. But look, the reality is, Summer League championships, the Kings have won already. I believe it was back in like 2014 or something like that when their best players were Ben McLemore and Ray McCallum. And so now they're trying to make it their second Summer League championship. And for a city like Sacramento, where winning doesn't usually happen too often, we get excited about this stuff. I imagine Boston doesn't care too much, with the exception of seeing some strong and solid individual performances. But I will say, matchup wise, there are more than enough reasons, especially with that Mitchell Pritchard battle, to tune in and pay attention.
So for the Celtics fans here, because we're putting this on both of our podcasts. So let's start with, what are we looking for from the Kings? How have the Kings gone undefeated? What are the names that Celtics fans should be looking at?
Well, of course, Davion Mitchell, he jumps off the page. I would say Chimezie Metu, who just signed or recently signed. He worked for his way from a two-way contract to a major contract, or an actual legitimate contract with the Kings that finally got fully guaranteed about a week ago. He actually might not be playing in this game because there might be a suspension handed down as he threw a punch in the Dallas Mavericks game on Sunday, which was a rebuttal for something that happened when Jonas Valanciunas pulled him off the rim, and there was no issues with that, or the league didn't do anything about Jonas Valanciunas pulling him off the rim. He actually broke his wrist last season. So I have a feeling that had something to do with that incident there. So Chimezie Metu might not be available, and he's technically one of the best players on that team. Jahmi'us Ramsey has been playing very well. In fact, he's been pretty much the leading scorer, the main scorer for the Sacramento Kings during the majority of this Summer League period. But overall, the way this Kings team has been winning is they're trying to, you can see the Summer League team trying to play with the identity that the main roster wants to establish for themselves, but hasn't yet, which is not relying solely on offense and solely on scoring. This team plays hard on both ends of the floor. They play hard defensively. They play physically, and that's given them some success so far in Las Vegas.
Well, that's going to be an interesting part of this game, actually, because the Celtics, who have come out with the greatest point differential, I think they're plus 21 in their 4 games, have done a lot defensively. There's a lot made of Peyton Pritchard's shooting, and he's really developed that deep logo kind of shot. Every day there's a different guy that's been going off. Carson Edwards, Aaron Nesmith. There are just any number of guys that are capable of going off. But what the Celtics have really done well is defend. They defend the rim. The other game, their last game, I think they had 12 block shots in their last game. And a lot of those guys aren't going to be around. Who knows? Bruno Fernando is a guy that has a few years experience. And this is kind of like where the Celtics have hung their hat. if you're a bad NBA team, a rebuilding NBA team, there's a good chance you've got a good summer league team because you've gotten high draft picks and you've got good talent. The other way to have a good summer league team is to not have any draft picks and have to send actual bench players like the Celtics have, and have like Peyton Pritchard, who's a rotation guy, and Romeo Langford, who's fighting to be a rotation guy, and Aaron Nesmith, who I just made the case for being a starter in the upcoming season. Those guys with the experience can kind of even trump some of the more talented younger teams. So the Celtics that's where they are, and they're trying to play with Ime Udoka's defensive mindset, his kind of what he's known for. So for a team like in the Celtics that's gone out there and scored 100+ points in I think 3 of their 4 wins, we might be looking at a game that actually is like a 70 to 60 something game with both teams playing pretty good defense.
Yeah, and I'd like to say, without watching, I've watched a little bit of, actually, to be honest with you, the Celtics are probably the team that I've watched the most other than the Sacramento Kings in Summer League, and I do that selfishly because I am a fan of Aaron Nesmith, which you brought up. I actually, in our 2020 NBA mock draft here on Locked On, I selected Aaron Nesmith for the Kings in that draft. Now, of course, Tyrese Halliburton wasn't even close to available, had no expectation of him being available for the Kings at 12 there, and Devin Vassell, who I also really liked, was not available there too. So Nesmith was that guy that I thought could be an interesting, maybe Buddy Hield replacement here in Sacramento. So I've been paying very close attention to Aaron Nesmith with his time with the Boston Celtics. So I'm excited to watch this battle just to see what he can do, because I don't know necessarily defensively if the Kings have an answer for him if he gets going really from the perimeter. But from my opinion, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, if this game is low scoring, I think it plays into the favor of the Sacramento Kings, who I think the most they've scored in the Summer League is 90 points in a game, which came this past weekend against the Memphis Grizzlies, if I'm not mistaken. But I mean, it's Summer League, right? Right? It's a flip the coin and we'll see what happens. One thing you will notice about this Kings team, though, is, and credit to the players on this roster who are fighting and battling for training camp invites, not just with the Kings, but with any other team. And it's good to see guys stepping up. But they have players like Emmanuel Terry is a good example. A big man who he's undersized, but he hustles, he plays hard, fights for rebounds, fights for second chance points. I enjoy seeing players playing hard like this is the last game that they're ever going to play. And I see a lot of those players on both of these rosters.
Yeah, I mean, going back to your original point here, if it is a low-scoring game, I think it'll be because the Celtics are missing a ton of shots. If it's a low-scoring game, that means the Celtics defense is playing as well as it has been playing. And then they've been scoring a ton of points getting out into transition and against teams that are, it's like you said, it's Summer League. And so everybody's screwing up. Cross matches are death in Summer League because no one can keep up. If the Celtics aren't scoring off of those turnovers, block shots, any of the stops that they're getting, that means that the three-pointers that they've been hitting all summer, all week long, have stopped falling. So if they go cold, then yeah, that might favor the Sacramento Kings. However, I will say that all it takes is for one of them to fall. So if we go into the fourth quarter and it's a low-scoring game and Peyton Pritchard starts, all of a sudden they start to fall, then watch out. I mean, this is the Peyton Pritchard that just scored 92 points in a Pro-Am. So watch out for that.
No kidding. Okay, yeah. Well, Davion Mitchell will be upset if he scores 9 points, let alone 92, which watching
that's actually going to be fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm actually going to enjoy that.
And
we were just joking around before we started recording, and we're like, we're going to screw around and have some fun with it. And like all it took was 90 seconds for us to actually get into a serious breakdown of how this game is going to go.
And I mean, caring this much or putting this much attention, this is the most build up or breakdown I've ever had, or preview, I guess, of a Summer League game ever in my career. But the way I try and approach every game, and even the post game of every game, and I wonder if you do the same, John, for the Celtics fans with Locked On Celtics, but it's what lessons and what factors can we take out of this game and apply to what really matters, which is the main roster. And the reality is, if the Kings are going to win, it's going to be off the backs of guys like Davion Mitchell, who are, of course, not only going to be a part of the main roster, but could make cases for working their way into the starting lineup eventually. A guy like Jamias Ramsey, which I brought up too, he was a two-way player last season. He's trying to fight for a main roster spot, and the Kings could always use more scoring and more shooting off their bench. So it's finding the lessons in this game and the positives from this game that can apply to the main roster. Because, I mean, going back to when the Kings did win the Summer League championship game, we, of course, know that after winning the Summer League championship, guess what? The Kings were garbage. They've been garbage for so long. So what can these young players do? What lessons can we pull? Even like the play of Nehemias Queta, right? Who some believe could crack the Kings rotation. I certainly believe is a natural 7-footer who blocks shots, protects the rim. There might be a spot in the Kings rotation for him. So how can he perform in the most meaningful Summer League game that you're going to actually get?
Yeah, this has been the theme of a lot of the Locked On Celtics podcasts. What's translatable? That's my question that I always ask. What's translatable to the next level? And this is where Nesmith really does separate himself a little bit, because what's translatable from Aaron Nesmith's 4 games? He has specifically sought out difficult shots. And Nesmith very easily could have said, I'm going to come into Summer League, I'm going to come off of the screens, I'm going to catch and shoot. And he could have taken nothing but open threes because he's got experienced big guys setting picks. The defenses are tough, are like inexperienced. So he'll find his open gaps in those defenses to get his 3-pointers, but he's not really doing that. He's actively searching out contested shots, because that's what's going to translate to the next level. Being able to hit shots against aggressive closeouts when maybe Jayson Tatum or Jaylen Brown are kicking if he's on the floor with them. So I like that. I like that Peyton Pritchard's translatable skill is 33-foot 3-pointers. Like if he's going to prove that you have to guard me way out there, now he becomes a serious floor spacer when he's on the floor. You have to account for him. So I think that there's some very translatable stuff for the Celtics. And there's some stuff like a lot of those block shots, 12 block shots, like I said in the last game, maybe 2 of them are meaningful as far as this upcoming season goes. The rest are just, hey, that was fun to watch. It's August. We're watching basketball. This is great. So I think each team has its own serious, meaningful things that it's looking for in these games. And in this final game, like, let's face it, you just said it. This championship doesn't mean anything. The fact that we're even talking about it and using the word championship is kind of silly. But hey, you're out there. You want to win this thing. Like, this is a game where might as well win it, and let's try it. And that's going to help these guys in at least a tiny bit of a pressure situation. Like, you're actively trying to win a game with these guys beside you. You don't have a Tatum or a Brown or De'Aaron Fox or, Harrison or whoever to lean on. You got to do it yourself. So we're looking at you. It's going to be on NBA TV. It's a national game, so let's what the hell? Let's see what these guys got in this kind of situation. And any little bit of positive kind of results from that, I think, help.
Well, the city of Sacramento might still host a parade if the Kings win, just for the hell of it, because, we need something to celebrate over here after everything that we've been through. But I will say, too, hey, I mean, Aaron Nesmith, second-year player, Tyrese Halliburton, second-year player. Tyrese hasn't been part of the Summer League roster, but he's been in Vegas working out with the team and following Summer League. So Kings might not be the worst idea in the world for Tyrese Halliburton to suddenly become available. But just saying, if you want to win, if you just want to win, I mean, you got to match up with Aaron Nesmith somehow, right? So I'm just saying,
sure,
maybe an
Why
idea,
not?
Monty McNair, maybe an idea.
That would be amazing. Hey, Jaylen Brown's around. Is he eligible? Let's just do this.
Why is De'Aaron Fox and Buddy here? Why is Marvin Bagley?
All of a sudden, Marcus Smart shows up, pulling off. Let's go. Slap the floor.
Oh, that would be amazing if it all of a sudden just turned into like a legitimate NBA game in Vegas. But imagine the insult to those poor players who did all the work to get them there. It's not, all right, now sit down. Here come the big guys. Let them handle the business. But
thank you. We got it from here. I'd like to see the Celtics raise a miniature banner, like a napkin-sized banner somewhere in the practice facility. Summer League champions.
Hey, well, the Kings will put it in the actual Gold One Center because we have a lot of room up there that's not taken up. One of the biggest banners we have in there, we actually have 2 banners next to each other, which is Pacific Division champions. Hooray. That's what we got. That's pretty much what we got. So we'll take anything that we can get up there. Give us the napkin. We'll hang it up at the top of the Golden One Center.
All right, Matt. Well, we'll see what happens. Maybe we can get together for a post-game show or something.
Hey, just don't be too sad and distraught when Sacramento gets the better of Boston again. I mean, historically, we look at the two cities. Sacramento's always had the edge. So just don't
Sure.
be too
Yeah, no, it's been tough. It's been tough to look longingly at Sacramento and all of their success.
Everybody wants to be Sacktown, man. Imagine being so close to Tahoe in the Bay Area. You can't beat it.
Can't beat it. All right, thanks to Matt George there at Matt George SAC on Twitter. If you want to talk some junk to Matt George, he is very willing and happy to participate. Go ahead, flood him. Flood his mentions. Have fun with it. Matt's a really good dude, creative guy, one of the best we've got on the network. So I do hope the Kings start to do well for his sake, but not well enough to beat the Celtics in, hey, look, as Sam Hauser said after practice on Monday, we didn't come here to lose. So I'm hoping that the Celtics win this thing and the Celtics get some kind of fun lesson out of this, and it continues the development of these guys. Talk more about Summer League in tomorrow's podcast for sure. Talk more Marcus Smart for sure as things come up. I'm sure there are going to be statements as soon as this thing can be officially signed. And so make sure you're subscribed all week long. It's still a 5-day-a-week podcast. The Celtics continue to make news throughout this offseason, so I have a lot to talk about. And like I said earlier, I'll bring in guests. I'll try to make sure that you have every angle of all of this stuff covered so you can know as best as we know what's going on to have the full Celtics experience with us and hopefully make you have more fun watching the Celtics and maybe a little bit more informed, a smarter fan as you watch the Celtics. So please subscribe. If you're listening to the show, if you're new to the show, please do so. If you are watching on YouTube for the first time, please subscribe, hit that little bell there, and get notified whenever a new podcast drops. And most importantly, share the podcast. If you love this show and you know Celtics fans in your life that have not listened or watched, tell them that they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network.